I used to carry around 3 books in my backpack, and it started to hurt my back. And in fact, I injured my back. I had a back injury from carrying around this heavy backpack all the time. So I thought, this might be a dumb way of doing this. What is up? This is David, and today I want to talk to you about reading and learning and absorbing that knowledge. So I've been a big fan of reading for many years. It's one of the biggest habits that I have. So for a decade plus, I have been reading very consistently. I don't want to say like every single day. I'm pretty sure I've missed a few days here and there. But very consistently I've been reading, and I credit books to a lot of my personal growth, to a lot of my fulfillment, and just a person who I've been able to become. So grateful for books being in my life. So I want to talk about books and reading and how we can go about reading and the many benefits of reading and what I've learned about reading, and just some tips, practical tips on reading and stuff like that. So let's first take a look at books and mainstream books specifically. So I want to say that just because a book is popular doesn't make it a good book. That's what I found out over the years. Just because a book is popular doesn't make it a good book. So the list, like number 1 best New York Times bestseller list or like Amazon list, just because it's on that list does not make it a good book, okay? And most of these books, especially in the self-help section, there's just a lot of recycled ideas over and over. They're taking the same idea and just recycling them over and over again. They're taking like the same studies and then putting it into like their own book and in their own words. And so let's take a look at it from like a publishing house perspective. So when somebody writes a book, it might be profound. It might have, it might be a life-changing book for all that we know. But then the idea can be fit into like 50 pages, right? But then when they go to the publishing house will say, all right, 50 this is great content and all, but in order for us to sell it, it has to be 200 pages. So can you add in some more examples or like stories in there so you can fill up 200 pages? So a lot of the books are mostly fluff, right? Especially the popular ones. So most of these books are fluff. They're just repeating the same idea over and over again. And not only that, but they're taking like experiments from other books and then including that into their own books. So for example, in the psychology world, gosh, they use the same type of experiments over and over again. Like an example is the marshmallow experiment. I'm pretty sure you've heard of the marshmallow experiment. I read that thing like 50 times in 50 different psychology books. But that's just an example of a lot of these popular books. They use the same information over and over again. So like I try not to get into the popular books, although of course there are gonna be some really good books on that list for sure. But I try to look for some of the more hidden gems, like hidden kind of gems. And so you have to really dig deeper and not just like for example, if Amazon was a bookstore, you don't want to just look at the front page or like the bestseller section. You might try to go deeper down the list. Maybe like I'll go on to like page 5 or whatever. And before you start reading a book, by the way, do some research on the book. Do some research on the author of the book too. And because if you're gonna commit a few hours of your life to something, you should do some research on it before you read it. And before it's like total crap, right? So you want to do some research before you invest some of your time into a book. And nowadays, I use digital formats of books, and there's a specific reason for this. So back in the day, I was an avid, almost like a very attached to physical books. Physical books, because I got to, write on them, I get to highlight them, whatever it is. But there came a point where I was lugging around maybe 3 books at a time in my backpack. I was lugging like 3 books because I like to cycle through different type of books. And we'll get to that in a moment. But I used to carry around 3 books in my backpack, and it started to hurt my back. And in fact, I injured my back. I had a back injury from carrying around this heavy backpack all the time. So I thought, this might be a dumb way of doing this. Because I have a digital format, a device that can carry thousands of books right here in my pocket, but I'm carrying around 3 books in my backpack. And so I came to the realization, like, what are books? Books are just information. It just contains information, right? So as long as we get the information, then it's all good. We shouldn't be clinging to one type of way. Instead, we need to adapt to the current technology because it's a lot more efficient when you just carry around something that's digital, right? So I'll give an example to make sense of this. So clinging on to physical books, and I used to be like, again, a die-hard fan of physical books, but clinging on to like physical books is kind of resemblant to clinging on to clay tablets back in the day. Back in the day, they held information in clay tablets, right? And then like paper books came along, the printing press came along, and now they can hold more information in these books, these paper format books. So if you see somebody carrying around clay tablets when there are physical books, what would you think about that person? You'd be like, dude, just buy some paper books, man. Stop clinging to those clay tablets, right? So it's the same thing with today, like physical books versus digital books. We can carry around a lot more information in our small little devices than carrying around a physical book. So I made that shift into digital, and so yeah, that's the reasoning why I do this. By the way, audiobooks, they're not cheating, by the way. People think that you're cheating with audio. No. Again, what is the purpose of a book? It's getting information from one person to another, transference of information, right? So as long as it's getting to your brain, then it doesn't really matter. But there's a reason why I do both. I do audiobooks and I do digital books. Because for audiobooks, when you listen to something, it's a lot harder to take notes, and it's a lot harder to go back to a place to highlight stuff, pretty much. So I like to do both. I like to listen to stuff, and when I hear something great that I want to like highlight in a book, then I go to the digital book and I highlight it there and I take notes there. And you want to take notes, by the way. Note taking is great, because what you can do with note taking is when you have great notes, when you have like a great summary and everything, you don't have to, like, for example, if you want to say reference a part of the book, you don't have to go back to the actual book and look through the actual book in order to get that information, because it's in your notes, right? So it's a shortcut to great information if you take good notes, right? So again, you're getting that information, the best parts of that book, and then you're taking notes on it, so you don't have to go back and look through the entire book to retrieve that information. It's a shortcut to great information. So yeah, it doesn't matter if it's an audiobook or if it's a digital book, but I like to do a combination of both. And so reading really helps develop yourself. I've learned tremendously from reading. Oh, by the way, I'm more in favor of published books rather than self-published books. Because here's the thing, anybody can become an author nowadays, and they can self-publish themselves. They can list it on Amazon, they can put it on the web. But the reason why I like published books more, and I'm not trying to say that all self-published books are bad, because I read some amazing self-published books, right? But usually the published ones are a little bit better, because the author, when they are working on a published book, they know that it has to be good. It has to be good because it's going to be read by an editor. So you have like multiple writers working together to make sure that the content is really good, and the author is putting, like, I don't know if it's a nonfiction, but they're putting like their life experience into this stuff, so that you don't have to take 10 years to learn something, and the author is, you know, taking their 10 years of experience and putting it into a book, and it's going to be well edited, and the published house is also going to see it and make sure to cross-reference it so that it's you know, they're like telling the truth and everything, or as close to the truth as possible, and it's really, really good content. So that's why I like reading published books versus self-published books, right? And reading, by the way, completely changed my life. It completely changed my life, because essentially what you're doing is you're taking a shortcut to life. Because like I said, the author can pretty much download, or maybe not download, but they can pack all their information, their life experiences into a book, so that you have all the shortcuts. You don't have to make the same mistakes the author did. So you're shortcutting on time. You're saving yourself time by reading books. You're learning from other people's experiences by doing that. And there's this great quote by John Stuart Miller. He said that it is better for a human being to be dissatisfied than a pig satisfied. It is better for Socrates to be dissatisfied than a fool satisfied. And if the pig or the fool have a difference of opinion, it is because they only understand their side of the question. So we have somebody who reads a lot and somebody who has never read before. The person who reads a lot, they understand both sides of the equation here. They understand both perspectives because they've been a non-reader themselves, right? So let me talk about my experience. I used to not read at all, right? And now I read very, very consistently. And because I understand both sides of the question, I used to be a non-reader, and now I'm a reader, I have more perspective. And let me tell you, reading is a million times better than not reading. And again, I can say this because I understand both sides of the question. Gosh, I can't even imagine if I haven't been reading for that decade plus. God, what kind of person I would be. Oh my gosh. So reading was a big life changer for me. It truly helped me grow so much because of reading. So I encourage you to read. I encourage you to grow. Not just to read, but also to apply the stuff. Apply what you read in the books. So that's just, some tips and advice on reading and absorbing knowledge. Hope you found some value out of this video, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.